Welcome, subscribers. We are speaking with Jim Morris, and I'd like to kind of change topic completely, shift gears here with Jim. He covers a lot of different areas, of course, and one of the advantages is to be able to speak with Jim about, all kinds of subjects. And what I love to talk about with Jim is, of course, UFOs and aliens, and to kick things off in this segment, I would like to kind of dive into talking about the abduction phenomena, the connection with the Greys, and also with a possible connection to mind control. So Jim, just let me ask you about the potential connection between a kind of human manipulation and mind control and abductees, and to kind of begin on an example, I guess. I know that you know Whitley Strieber very well, and he's of course is one of the persons who actually got an implant in one of his ears, and he has mentioned during his shows that he actually can feel these things switch on, his ear gets warm, etc. Do you think that it's possible that kind of what Whitley Strieber has experienced and all of this actually might not be something out of this world in that sense, but actually is connected with human intervention and possibly even mind control?
Well, there's always that possibility, and that's what raises so many questions about the so-called abduction experience. And do we have the technology, and is it possible that governments might be using this to manipulate and control people? Absolutely yes. But I would have to say that in my experience and in my research for Alien Agenda and my other books, I find that there is a extremely fascinating commonality between the people who report these experiences that goes far beyond just images placed in their mind by mind control. Mm-hmm. I think that they represent a phenomena that's real and that is happening to millions of people that we just clearly don't truly understand. Mm-hmm. And I think this, by the way, is one of the main reasons for the government secrecy. They have to deny that UFOs exist. They have to deny that anything's going on, because if they ever admit that it's real and it is happening, then people are going to demand answers. Who are they? What do they want? Mm-hmm. And they don't have those answers.
No. So, I've heard kind of stressed the idea that, an actual abduction can take place with a person, and then afterwards a second abduction takes place, but that time actually it is the government doing the abduction in order to kind of keep track on the people who actually are abducted, because they themselves are trying to find out what might be special with the people who actually are abducted. Have you heard about this before?
Oh yes, and I think that there's probably some truth to that in a limited number of cases. Again, I just don't think that the governments, or even the United States government, has the resources to be grabbing and mind manipulating that many people. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure that that's going on. In fact, I know from some experiences with people I've talked to who have these abduction experiences and then are contacted by government agents who want to know what happened to them, and they want to get the details. So I know that's happening on that level. Mm-hmm. And the idea that they might be grabbing people and then subjecting them to hypnosis or chemical processes or whatever to determine what happened to them is certainly not out the realm of possibility.
No. Seems.
But let me add this. Mm-hmm. I found this most interesting in researching my book Alien Agenda, and that is that we mostly hear about these abductions in a very negative way. In fact, the term abduction itself is a very negative term. Nobody wants to be abducted. And yet what I found out was the reason we hear about that so much is that it's only the people who have what they perceive as a negative experience. They're terrified, they're traumatized, and they are the ones who go and try to seek some sort of professional help, whether it's through a Bud Hopkins or one of the numerous researchers who are trying to study this phenomenon, or or whether they go to a hypnotherapist or a psychologist to try to find out what had happened to them.
Mm-hmm.
What I found, to my amazement, is that there's perhaps an equal number of people, or certainly a large number of people, who've had these same experiences, but they do not perceive them as a negative or traumatic experience. In fact, I had one woman tell me that she considered herself an honored guest. Mm-hmm. And these people, of course, do not want the publicity or the ridicule, so they very rarely ever tell anybody about their experiences other than just very close friends. Mm-hmm. And that's why you very rarely hear about a benevolent abduction experience.
Sure.
But I will also add that despite some rumors, none of which I could pin down, I don't know of anybody, certainly in the Western industrial nations, that has experienced one of these abduction type scenarios that has not been brought back. So it's not like they're taking people and eating them or taking them and never bringing them back. Everybody always comes back. It's, at worst case scenario, it would seem to be that we're like lab rats. They're just checking us out, examining us, perhaps tagging us with an implant and then putting us back.
And there is, I guess, if we're to be more sinister about it, I guess, but there are a lot of people actually disappearing, all over the place each year.
Well, I hear about that, Heinrich, but I have, when I check with police officials in the United States, yes, there's a significant number of people reported missing each year, but what I'm told is that these are usually the results of domestic squabbles. The husband or the wife takes the kids and takes off, and then the one left behind goes and reports them as missing, but they're not genuinely missing. They were just, they're just off out there somewhere. I could not find any hard and credible statistics to show that that many people are just missing. Now, I've heard that there are a lot of people missing from some of the perhaps South American countries or from some third world countries who cannot be accounted for, and I don't know. Perhaps that's true, perhaps it's not. I'm just telling you that in the westernized industrial nations, most of the time, if you'll check out the numbers of missing persons, most of them are just people who just dropped off the grid or were taken by relatives. And, of course, there is a small percentage of people who are turn up to be victims of serial killers and kidnappers and this, that, and the other thing. That does happen, but then that does not have a unearthly theme to it.
Yeah, sure. Do you think that it would be fair to say, that someone is then trying to make, the aliens or whatever they actually are, to give them a bad rap, so to speak, trying to look to make them...
absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no question about that, and I'll tell you why, because to my personal knowledge, there are contingency plans in government files right now. And in fact, I will just tell you what Dr. Carol Rosen stated. She was the assistant to Dr. Werner von Braun, who was the Nazi rocket scientist who then came to the United States and built the V-2 rockets and then became head of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration and was there during the time of the Apollo missions and is considered the father of space science here in the United States. And she said that as early as 1973, 74, he was telling her, and this is amazing, and keep in mind this was in 73, early 70s, that the communist threat was bogus, that was simply a ruse to propel everybody into supporting the space initiative and the defense budget. And he said when that didn't work anymore, it would be terrorist. Well, whoa, here we are. And he said when the terrorist threat didn't work anymore, the next thing would be a threat from space.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, and then she also added quite cryptically that while he told her that quite emphatically and on more than one occasion, it seemed that he was also terrified of something, but he would never discuss what that was. And my particular theory on this is that I think Werner von Braun, who was probably as knowledgeable as anybody in a position of power and authority back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, I think that he knew that when they said there was a threat from aliens from space that he knew that was bogus. What terrified him was he knew that the presence of ETs, extraterrestrials, was very real, and they didn't know what their program was. They didn't know how to control them. They didn't know how to prevent them from doing things. They knew they had advanced technology, and I think that's what terrified him as a scientist and as a defense official, is that they didn't know what to do about this thing.
Interesting. Since we are in on the topic now of NASA and of course the Nazis and their connection to UFOs and their technology and so forth. There are several strands running throughout this story that there is a kind of occult connection between the Nazis and that they actually developed the technology to have flying saucers themselves and all of this stuff. Is this something that you kind of subscribe to or believe in that sense?
It's not a question of subscribing to. It's simply a historic fact that when the Allied armies overran Nazi research facilities, they found the diagrams and the plans and the schematics for flying saucers. They were working on it. The only question has been, did they actually perfect one and get one in the prototype where they could actually fly one? And there is some debate on that, but from my research, it seems pretty plain that yes, they did. And that was part of the secret advanced technology that some of the top Nazis used as bargaining chip to swap to the Allied powers in exchange for immunity. We all know, it's been well documented now, that under Project Paperclip, thousands of Nazi scientists and not non-scientists were brought over to the United States, and a similar number was taken to the Soviet Union, and even France and England had their quota, and they all brought them in there, and they were picking their brains and trying to find out the knowledge that they had. And most of these people were never punished for their war crimes in Nazi Germany. Only a few of the more publicized cases. For example, in Germany, they punished the concentration camp commanders and some of the more brutal guards, but the doctors and the psychiatrists who had laid the pseudo-scientific foundation for their actions, they really weren't punished. In fact, many of them went on to successful and laudatory careers and died of old age.
One thing I did want to ask also about was, and I can't remember now if this was the case, but the famous Betty Barney Hill case. I think that this is the one. I don't know, but I remember witness reports of not abductees, but basically those who saw a UFO actually saw people inside with Nazi uniform. Have you heard about this?
Yes, that's all documented in my book, Alien Agenda. Hill said that he saw people in Nazi uniform. So that brings a huge question up. Is that were some of the early UFO reports simply secret Nazi technology being carried out even after the end of World War II, or was it Nazis